Welcome to our Meet the Experts Composers panel. We are joined here by Henry Jackman from the Comey role, Jeff Richmond from Girls5eva, Terence Blanchard from Perry Mason, Rafael Rivera from the Queen's Gambit, and Nicholas Britell from the Underground Railroad. Thank you all for being here. I want to start by asking you guys, like, if you have a writing routine, like, do you like to write in the morning or at night, maybe in the middle of the night? Do you need like your coffee next to you or something? Terence, let's start with you.
I like to write while I'm conscious. You know, I mean, that's really the way it works. You know, I write until I can't write anymore, man. You know, I wake up, I always say that there are things that I want to do before I start writing, and it never works. It never happens because there's always that thing swirling around in the back of your brain. Like, I need to do this. I have to get this done. And I know most of the guys here are probably the same way. You know, we work in with such rigorous schedules where you don't want to be the person who's holding up any project. So you just want to make sure you have everything taken care of. So I don't rest until things are done. Now, living in New Orleans, when they're done, party on. You know what I mean?
Henry, what about you?
Well, I couldn't agree more. It's one of those, people have maybe some kind of romantic vision of composers, like, oh, how do you work, as if the whole world is awaiting our latest efforts, a bit like, you know, asking Stanley Kubrick after 7 years whether he has like 2 lines of a script we may or may not be allowed to see. That's not how it works. You know when the dub is, you know how many minutes there are. If it doesn't get done in that time, it's bad news. Like, you don't need any motivation. There's no such thing as, oh, sorry, you know, I really wanted to get the music kind of sorted, but, you know, with one thing and another, I never kind of got around to it. It doesn't happen. And I just write, I basically like waking up and starting writing first thing in the morning, really. I reckon I get more done between 6 and 9. I reckon I get as much done between like 1 p.m. and 10 p.m.
I'm very much a morning person too. So. Nick, what about you?
I mean, I agree with everyone. I think that I think something I'm always trying to do is to give myself kind of like artistic space to just play music for myself or just kind of write for myself a bit, because I feel, looking back, I think some of the most inspiring or even just productive periods of my life have always been the times when I like was not writing for a particular thing, and what I learned in those windows of time. That being said, those windows of time are few and far between. So I think it's sort of like, you know, aspiring for those moments. And the other thing I was going to say, actually, I just thought of was, I find that I'm most in the zone when I'm playing a lot, actually. You know, it's a weird, almost subconscious, like physical thing that happens when I'm, you know, like, I love waking up and playing the piano in the morning, and there's something about it. It's almost like you resonate with music more, I think, when you're playing a lot. So
yeah, just like tinkering around. Yeah. Carlos?
I've noticed that as I've gotten older, when I was a student, I would only write because I had the assignment due the following day. So I'm a procrastinator by nature. And if I wasn't on something, I'd be playing video games for sure. Like, I'd be Breath of the Wild and just be doing just whatever I could, Nintendo Switch all day or whatever. And that has been like the thing that I've learned, that I am not the person who has to keep going if I don't have something that I have to do. And I've been okay with that for a while now, because I do like playing video games. So, but there is no time, there's been no time, and trying to address that. As a matter of fact, I was talking to some students about this, and not that part about the video game stuff, but the truth is, like, I think the job is delivery. The job is being on time. The job is being able to make that impossible schedule. And it's insane. It is pretty much an insane thing. And I've been learning a lot about it over the last few years. So,
Jeff, what about you?
I get up about 9:30, and somebody brings me a poached egg. No, you know, in the music business, there's all these things to tell you.
It's looking like Downton Abbey.
Right. You're literally the last person. You're the last creative at the end of the line. You're the last person that turns off the light on the way out the door. You're it. You really are. and everything piles up. Everybody else can take a little more time with their thing, and hosts can be like, well, the editorial, this is not done, we're not quite locked, picture this and that. But it really comes down to how quickly creative you can be at the very end. Everybody has actually said it. The pressure on the music people is nuts. And something I think Nicholas was talking about, and I think we probably all experienced, when you are writing and you are scoring this episode, a few episodes in, and you realize, oh, I haven't had the time to do the brain work that I really should have done because I have to work so quickly. Now I'm 3/4 of the way through, and I finally found the one motif I think really works.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? What do I do? Do I go back and do I start reworking? And those things are the kind of the demands and the hurdles, and the things that make the job really interesting and brutal at the same time. But it's you're the last guy.
Good point.
Is there a piece that you've written that you really love or really proud of, but it doesn't make the final cut of a project for whatever reason? Maybe it just doesn't fit the show or movie, but it's just something you hope can see the light of day one day. Henry?
Well, you know what? When I did X-Men, I'm hesitant to say this in case Matthew Vaughn ever hears this. The thing is, he was actually spot on. For X-Men First Class, for some reason, because he got really excited about, oh, come on, let's start writing suites and all this big symphonic music before you've seen a cut, before anything, because he's really into music. And I, at that point, wasn't quite aware of the level of teenagey, coming of age, factor to it. So, of course, being a pompous idiot, I launched into a sort of the Spielberg version of X-Men First Class and wrote this, because I really love Michael Kamen's Adagio in the first X-Men First, and I wrote this big pompous Adagio that sounded like a cross between like Bartok and Punofnik, and then it was all this incredibly posh, dark symphonic music that was sort of half trying to be concert music, half Danny Elfman. Anyway, Matthew Vaughn gets to hear it with his baseball cap sort of half sideways and goes, I hate it. It sounds like classical music. I hate it. And the thing is, the guy was right. It ended up because it wasn't right. I'd hardly got any footage, and it was way too, in the context of the movie, I think it was for a different X-Men movie where perhaps everyone was a bit more, a bit older and a bit more together, and it ended up being there was a much stronger pop sensibility in it. But that wasn't just a piece. I got excited and had like most of reel 1 and 2 of my like vast symphonic opera X-Men First Class that's like all in the bin.
I mean, I would watch X-Men.
But I do want to put on record he was right. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, the tortured artist. There was this grand vision that got stopped, and he was completely right. It was the wrong music.
Nick, what about you?
I was going to say there's always so much music. I think on every project, in a way. I mean, part of that is just I think the way that certainly I approach stuff, which is like I always feel at the beginning like I don't know where we're going to wind up, and so by definition, there's stuff that is going to work, and there's things that are totally not going to work, and that you're going to be like, okay, now I know, kind of like what you're saying, what not to do. And yet, one of the interesting things I find is on the albums sometimes, in particular when I'm working with Barry, there are pieces of music that Barry and I really love, and Barry will be the first to say how much he loves something, but he's like, but it's just not right for this. And I think one thing that we're all kind of saying and feeling is, it's that collaboration, that trust that you're going on this journey. That that's the nature of the journey, is to trust your director, your showrunner, who the team, the creative team. And yet, that being said, there are definitely pieces that we like to release, even if they don't make it in, and we try to put them on the album as like a bonus track or something like that. And actually, on Underground Railroad, we're even releasing some of the early sketches that are not in the series. Just to I love hearing those and seeing that. So.
And I guess now, especially, with like Spotify and stuff, it's so easy just to like upload, like unreleased tracks. So, Jeff, what about you?
You're always writing more, and then you wish it was there, and things that you really fell in love with, and then hopefully someone talks you out of it. I will look back now, though. When we were doing 30 Rock and scoring so much in 30 Rock, I wish I had somebody telling me not to put music in things so much, but that train moves so fast that people just kept wanting more music in it. But I look at them now and I go like, oh, there's too much music here and there. I like it, but I wish I'd had somebody spotting with me a little bit more, because But we were also young and, whatever, we didn't know. But I will say this, comedy is tricky, and I did, for the first movie I did, which was Baby Mama, Baby Mama, I had this beautiful waltz thing that I thought was scoring the whole opening sequence. It just tied everything together so nice, and I thought waltzes and babies, it sounded so lovely, but the director just kept wanting to put a piece of source material in, like a hit from the 80s, and I remember being very discouraged about that. But that's the one that I had, but the director was right. It's a comedy, and you have to be careful about picking and choosing those things.
Carlos?
Same. I just finished something, and it's more of a comedy. And I wrote a piece that I thought was going to be like the one, and they rejected it so hard, and that I realized, yes, that's right.
I know
it sucks.
You're like, oh.
Yeah, dude. I was even because I'm getting better at the Zoom thing, so I was looking at the Zoom while they're listening to it, thinking this is the one, and it was not the one. And I had that with the Queen's Gambit. The first game he sent me was like everything was shot in nice assembly, very good in the basement with Mr. Scheibel, and I scored this game, and I was like, this felt like the one. I think I nailed it. I sent it in, and he called me, and Scott was like, Carlos, you're scoring the wrong movie, and that's a note, and that's a note, and so that is the job too. I do know this, that even in this last process, this last thing I did had a lot of revisions, like 20 something on some cues. And I know that the job is that every time that the cue has never, in my experience so far, which is very little, revising has never degraded what the final product is. It's only improved because I don't know better. They know better, or the collaboration is what makes it better, I guess. And that definitely was an education, because this last one, the cue is better now, but one I suggested that was the one, but it's gone. It's in the bin with Henry's opus, I think.
They're never as good as you remember. Yeah, if you dig them out, they're never as good as how in your head. They're way better.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Terence,
the older I get, the better it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's happened. I've listened to everybody else. It's happened. For me, it was a film working with Spike. It was A Miracle at St. Anna, man. And the movie starts with this big battle scene. So I'm a trumpet player. I'm like, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, let me in.
So I was. This was my moment to write all my, symphonic. Like my man Henry there. I wanted to write all of my symphonic rhythmic stuff. Brass fanfares and drums going all over the place, catching every shot. Every time somebody shot a pistol, there was something going on. And man, and Spike heard it, and he goes, "No, dude, that's all I got." You know what I mean? And it's like, no. He said, it should be more melodic and operatic, which I got. And like everybody's saying here, once I realized that was me creating my movie, not realizing Spike had a cinematic vision. And I just found this one moment where I got a chance to do something I probably wasn't going to ever get a chance to do. And I took my shot, and my shot was totally wrong. It was terrible. But I got to tell you, one time it happened, and man, it was such a weird experience because I wound up not doing the film. But it was good, though. It was a good thing because the scene, I'll just give you this. I can't tell you the film, but the scene was about this little girl, right? And when I played the music, man, the producer said, "Well, it sounds like this music is making me think that she's sitting at a house where someone died inside." And I went, "Okay." And I had nothing but flutes playing, so I'm like, "Okay." And then she, and then she literally started to sing to me what the music should be. You know what I mean? And man, I wish I had a smartphone back then just to record that. You know what I mean? Because right at that moment, there were two things that happened. I knew I wasn't going to do this movie, and I was ecstatic about not doing that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those are the worst case scenarios. But when you're working with talented people, of course, it happened to me one time too. I was working on a television show called Their Eyes Are Watching God. Darnell Martin was the director, and it was such an interesting thing where I kept coming up with these ideas because I was excited about working on this project. And the thing that I loved about Darnell, man, that was, and like most of the guys are saying here, she kept bringing me back to the story. You know, she said, that's really beautiful and that's great. But remember this character, blah, 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 blah. And I went, you know what? She was right every time. And it was a big learning experience for me. That was early on in my career. That was a big learning experience for me about context, you know, about how to stay within the context of a story and about making that artistic decision and sticking to your guns. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we have these knee-jerk reactions about, oh man, this music needs to be this or it should be this. But no, you know, the director has a viewpoint about how they want to tell a story. And at the end of the day, that's really our job. Our job is to help them tell a story.
Yeah, I think we need to hear all of these pieces somehow. See the light of day. Well, finally, in the similar vein, do you remember the first piece of music you composed, Carlos?
Yeah, I wrote a piece on the guitar. It was like a piece for a girl I like, and I went to a party. I was like 16, 17, you know, and I went to this party and there was a guitar there, and I remember I played it and everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's so adorable! He's playing a song." Yeah, I wrote it for you. And then she never called me again.
Oh.
So I have, and I've been with my wife now with my wife for like 28 years or something. I have not written a single thing for her ever, and never will, because I just wanted to stay. I don't want her to leave. Yes, that was massive. So that was my first piece.
Jeff, what about you?
Boy, a long time ago. You know, when you're a kid and you grow up in rural Ohio and you don't have any kind of access to, I'm going to score a movie or this or that. You don't have any of that. All you have is theater. And so I remember my first steps were like, I'm going to write a little something for whatever, high school theater, doing a musical. And I think I wrote a song called The Hormone Blues when I was like 14 years old. And I'm gonna produce it again.
Oh man,
it has longevity. I should bring it back. But that was the first thing I ever wrote. I think
something that would have been like a rock.
Yeah, it should have been. Maybe we can get in Girls5eva next season. Something.
Yeah, please. Terence, what about you?
Oh man, I wish I had a story that's as great as those two, but mine is kind of boring. You know what I mean? You know, when I was a kid, my aunt, my mom's sister, went to college with this great composer, local composer named Roger Dickinson. And Roger, man, you know, if I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if it wasn't for this guy. And when I was 15 years old, he made me write a piano concerto based off of a 6-note tone roll. And not only did he make me write that concerto, but he made me like write it out on the graphic paper, you know, to make it look really pretty. The sad part is that we lost it in the Hurricane Katrina, you know. So yeah, I don't have it anymore. But that was a very first composition that I'd written when I was a kid, man. And took me a semester to do it. It was a long process, you know, but I learned a lot from it.
Yeah. Henry?
Well, I'm gonna sound so uncool, because like when I was 8, I went to some like monasterial British cathedral choir school. So I wasn't hanging out with the guitar, like the whole Technics 1210s and samplers and like going raving and all that. That was later. So aged 8, I was wearing like an Elizabethan ruff and singing Latin ecclesiastical church music. So the first thing I wrote when I was 8 was a sort of blatant rip-off of, we were singing Handel's Messiah. So it's like a classical piece that's sort of half Mozart's Dies Irae and half Handel, some aria of Handel's. That's, you know, it's just a blatant lift, I think, from and extremely uncool. But you know, what are you going to do? That's the music I was hearing at the time.
Hey,
yeah,
that's cool.
Nick?
Well, I started playing piano when I was really young. So I was like 5, and we had this old upright it was like actually it's an old player piano that the player mechanism had broken on it that my grandmother bought secondhand when I was like 2, and I wrote this. I was literally just like playing the same chord kind of like over and over again, and then I put this other chord on top of it, and it sounded like kind of a train or something. So I called it the Train Symphony. It just had this, and then I would just occasionally hit this other chord, and that was the Train Symphony. So that was my first piece.
Maybe that should have been the Underground Railroad. It's the Train Symphony. So
if John Cage had written that, it would be If John Cage had written that, it would be considered a masterpiece.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My parents were very into it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's great speaking with all of you. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on all of your projects. Like, they were all wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day.